Incompetence Pod.
Welcome to the Perpetual Incompetence Podcast, a journey in competitive self-improvement.
Fasten your drool cups and ready your vomit bags as the three of us endeavor to improve our lives or deaths by competing in a series of low-stakes challenges.
In this episode, we'll embark on the spookiest challenge imaginable.
We'll have a fortnight to do our beast, and at the end, one of us will be crowned King Mummy or something. Hi, I'm true believer and poetic soul, Mike Collins, the introspective detective.
Hello, I'm Master Yogi, Master of Wind, the Songsmith, the busiest beaver, your new best friend, Yumpin' Yodeler Dan Collins, the tanky planker.
And I'm the human popsicle, Mr. Sunshine, future corpse, and synergistic mystic, Travis Greenicus Brabin, the silver-tongued pumpkinist. We each have one chilling challenge to consider. Once we've all presented, we'll decide which one is the most spooktacular. Who wants to go first?
Spectacular.
Very silly.
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. The world is full of wonder and mystery, and now at this time of year more than ever, people speculate that the veil between worlds or whatever is thinnest. Wouldn't it be nice to have a better feel of what's real and what is fake? Wouldn't it be nice to have some sort of proof, some evidence of something strange? I think over the next 2 weeks, we should try to find the most compelling piece of evidence of any supernatural phenomenon.
That's good.
It could be anything.
That's really
Aliens, cryptids, ghosts, anything. Just find something that provides the best argument that something that is not generally accepted as real is in fact real, or that something is going on.
Question. Were you imagining like research or like active go out and like find ghosts?
Whatever you want to do. I
So
would say probably just watching or like research, because that requires a lot of time. But if you want to, by all means.
Okay.
Well, I have an idea that is very closely related to this. What if we do this, but the three of us go and do a ghost investigation? The three of us. And then we find a local haunted place. We go there, and then we try and find a ghost that in some night.
So whoever finds a ghost wins? Or are you just saying like we should do this at some point in our lives?
No, well, I think, okay, so let's talk self-improvement. So I know the three of us are not the ghost searching types. That's not to say that we're afraid to do it. That is to say that we all more or less think it's a bunch of hogwash.
Yeah, I would say we're not the most ghost believing types.
Yeah. So, but I know for a fact that, having said that, on the internet now, that somebody is going to think like, these guys are they're closed-minded idiots. Well, they're clearly idiots, but they're closed-minded as well.
We've proven that with our intro.
Yeah. So, like, this I think is just another opportunity for us to go outside of our comfort bubble and say like, all right, sure, we'll go and experience this world and see if there's anything to be had there. We'll go talk to ourselves in the dark with, in a gross place.
We'll hugely misinterpret static on EVPs or whatever.
Yes,
we will. We'll do those things.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, what do you guys think of that?
I like it. I think it's fun, but let's see what else we got.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm open to it, but go ahead, Dan.
Well, so mine's kind of a simpler concept, I think. Maybe. I'll talk about why it would be self-improvement. I think maybe much like the ice bath thing, where you kind of feel that like back to your basic instinct and nature, like your fight or flight kind of thing. I think we need to like I feel like that's a good thing to feel, and also an array like a array of emotions is a very healthy thing for a mind. So we should try to get the most scared who through whichever means, but try to feel the most fear out of the
Okay.
three of us, whether it be watching a really scary movie or like going to a scary haunted place or maybe a haunted house, whatever scares you, try to get the most scared.
Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
We could pretty
Uh,
much do all of ours.
Yeah.
well,
Just wrap them all up into one thing.
so I guess what I had said earlier was kind of an attack on to Travis's, but I am going to separate it because I think they are kind of a separate concept. So do a ghost hunt and find the ghost. Is my submission. So I'm sticking with that because I think it's good.
So you
I
mean like all of us together do it?
Yeah, dude.
But how do we determine if there's a winner?
Well, who comes with the best evidence that was their idea to try and get?
Oh, so we all go there with different tools.
Yeah, you got to bring your own ghost hunting gear. I'm not gonna do that for you,
Oh.
Dan.
So okay, so we go there and we ghost hunt separately.
Well, I mean, we could all ghost hunt together, but I think we'd probably get the most out of it if we were kind of run around the house in the dark by ourselves. I mean, we don't even have a place picked out. I don't know anywhere that's haunted. Do you?
yeah.
Nah, no. So I will say in Indonesia, the the people believe in ghosts. At least where I live, most pretty much everybody knew that ghosts existed, and they knew where the scary haunted places were. And I kept saying, I don't think ghosts are real, and they're like, well, okay, okay, Dan. But they actually took me out one night to a very haunted place with I think he was a dukun or something, basically like a shaman type person
Mhm.
Okay.
who like shows you that ghosts like get gets a ghost to come around. Um, and he had a basket of flowers that spontaneously combusted in front of me.
Ooh.
Um, Needless to say, I wasn't fully convinced that it was a ghost. But
Yeah,
I
that
have
doesn't
sort of I've been to something like this before.
So you're an
Um,
old hat.
it's sorta blasé. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I do have experience with this, I guess I could say.
I I'm on board to do a ghost hunt. I do wonder if, inevitably if we don't find anything at all, if we're stuck trying to figure out who found the best nothing.
My one concern about doing this is that it would be too hard to coordinate in the 2 weeks that we need to do because it would be like we'd have to get it all figured out and then the weekend of Halloween we go and uh that we do it that weekend.
I
Yeah,
Um
suspect if we don't coordinate it though, it probably won't happen.
it
yeah,
seems like the way Travis presented it would be a little bit easier to do.
like where we all try to find our own.
Yeah,
I like his
Uh
idea.
I kind of like that being said, I really like Dan's idea where we just try and get the most scared.
but it could
I
kind of
mean,
go hand in hand, honestly.
well, yeah, that's true. I mean, we could do all three, I suppose, if we really wanted to.
I
Um,
will say that like if you want to like talk genuine fear or fright, like movies don't typically do like jump scares obviously shock or surprise you. Or there's many elements of horror movies that I'm not into, but I think what would be more genuinely frightening is like something that is like indisputable or like actual evidence of unexplainable stuff. That to me is more frightening than like the Hollywood movie making magic or whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah, scary movies don't scare me so much. They used to, not really anymore. Horror video games scare me. They're better
yeah.
at scaring you.
Well, it's
But
because you get it like in a video game, you actually have skin in the game, kind of.
yeah,
It's not it's not like something that you're watching happen. It's something that you're actively participating in, and
yeah,
and the monsters can actually get you. You
yeah.
know,
Well, and now I have
so.
like a dog to protect me from the scary monsters on the screen too. So
Side note,
Sure.
can I tell a funny story?
Sure.
So one
Not
night.
allowed on this podcast.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, so one time, so me and my wife, before we had kids, and I had just gotten out of the Marines, and we were staying at my parents or my in-laws, their second home that they had bought that they were going to move into, and build a house on that property, and the property came with this just ancient house. It was built in like 1840 something, just super old. And it wasn't like scary or anything. It was just a super old house, and it was all like slanted and stuff. But anyway, it's great. We had a good time living there. And but Dan came to visit us once, and me and Lindsay had gone to bed, and Dan does this thing where he only likes to watch horror movies by himself in the dark.
yeah,
That's the thing that Dan does.
Sure.
And
the only
so
way to
he had.
only a way to do it. Otherwise, you don't get scared.
Yeah. So we had me and Lindsay had gone to bed, and we were laying in our bedroom, which was right next to like the TV room, and we could hear Dan was watching a movie, but we were kind of drifting off, and all of a sudden we hear ah.
Yeah,
And what had happened, I think you were watching, what, I don't remember
it
what
was
you were watching.
Paranormal Activity like 2 or 3 or something like that.
Yeah. So what had happened was during a very tense moment of the movie, our kitten, our cat that we had at the time, had jumped out from under the coffee table at Dan.
At my face, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a funny thing.
Some people pay for that kind of experience. Let me throw this out there. I haven't fully thought it out in my brain, but we could, rather than try to go to like a haunted house or find some sort of haunted thing, we could twist the challenge to be more alien focused and do more like sky watching
See, now
and then bring,
aliens scare me more than ghosts do, I would say. But
well, aliens are real.
yeah, aliens are real.
but can we prove it?
We could try to get abducted.
We could try to get abducted. We just go out in the woods and like strap lights to ourselves.
Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about getting scared, being alone in the woods and at night, that's scary. Because
Yeah.
there's like bears and stuff out there.
Well, yeah, I mean that taps into that primal instinct that
Yeah.
you were talking about.
The closest I've come to that, it was when we were building that cabin that Dan was staying at recently, and I had gone up there the night before to do a bunch of work by myself, and I mean that cabin is in the middle of the woods by itself, like completely by itself, and there's no roof or windows or doors, and I had slept in the cabin by myself in the woods. Uh, yeah, I watch movies all night to keep myself from freaking out. But it was also like
Yeah.
super duper cold, and my brother-in-law Sam was coming to help me in the morning. So he came. I was like, I had like drank a bunch of water, so I kept on having to get out of my sleeping bag and go outside of my walls that I had to go to the bathroom. And it was like, I don't know, 10 degrees out there. I have like a really nice sleeping bag, so I was fine. But then he had to bring me coffee so I could get life back in my body in the morning. But
It was
that was
there's a my scary wood story is a couple years ago I was duck hunting. I looked on the maps and there was like it looked like there was a little pond kind of back in the woods on some public land. And I wanted to find a spot that nobody else is going to get to, like a place I could have to my own. So I parked a ways away and then I like hiked in carrying decoys and my gun and stuff like that. And got there, found the place, and it was okay. I didn't really have any success, but I ended up kind of staying too long. And then I picked up the decoys and stuff like that and started hiking out. And it got dark enough to where I couldn't like see my landmarks anymore. And then
Oh,
got like it kept getting darker, and you're like trying to walk faster to get where you're going, and you're kind of stumbling over the brush and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
then you get twisted around, and you think that you're walking in a straight line, and you get turned again, and then I genuinely had the thing happen where like I ended up back where I was. I was like, oh boy, this is not good.
No.
It's a genuinely like unnerving, and like it
Yeah,
starts to verge on kind of panicky, whatever. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
for this school, I was
Yes.
fine. I could sleep in the woods if I had to, but like there is that kind of the primal sense of like, oh no, I have screwed up. I've screwed up very badly.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten, like it wasn't for an extended period of time, but I've gotten lost in the woods at night, and it's a you gotta fight that panic
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah,
Yeah. And like yeah, that's like people die that way. They get scared and then they go sprinting through the woods, and
Yeah.
right.
they get proper lost. Like so, then when the sun comes up, they have no idea where they are. I mean, that's a thing that happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that happen. Like going out to the deer stand in the morning or coming back a little late, and I didn't like do a good job marking my path to get out, and then like, oh, we might be here for a while.
Yeah. Things start to look very different when the sun goes down. All right, let's decide on a challenge. And
Yeah,
that's enough spooky stories. Let's save some for the back half.
yeah, okay. Oh man, these are pretty good. I kind of like Dan's because I feel like it's much more doable without like having to go out and do things. Travis, I guess yours is also good because then it's just more research. It's
hmm
finding that one might be the easiest to do. I like the
I think it
ghost.
might be more compelling for listeners too. If we can say, "Hey, we're skeptical, and these are the best things that like the most convincing things to us," maybe that's more compelling to a listener to be able to look at that, and saves them a bunch of research time.
That's true. If okay, so if we do that, do we need to like nail it down? Like, is it got to be ghosts? Can it be like aliens? Can it be Bigfoot? Or
I
just
think
whatever?
anything,
Just
dealer's
anything.
choice.
Dealer's choice. I don't know. What do you think,
So
Dan?
I'm very skeptical about any supernatural thing, but I'm not even joking. I'm not very skeptical about aliens and even Area 51. Like I'm like doesn't take much to. I've read a lot of stuff about it. So like we could probably take that off the table because I'm not that skeptical about that.
All right,
Well,
so
we,
I
no
could go
no
it
on.
does.
I
alien
could go on
stuff.
and on
Well,
about
it
that,
doesn't
but
have to be. I mean, we don't have to be skeptical about it. We could go in there with a tinge of belief. It's a matter of finding the best evidence. Like, what is the scariest evidence to you? You know what I mean?
okay.
So, and I think I would probably also go down the alien route, because I also kind of the ghosts don't spook me too much. I don't know, man. It might be kind of fun to try and stuff. The problem with the ghost stuff for me is that none of it is immensely convincing, and the stuff that's like whoa, that looks like a ghost is kind of like, oh, this is somebody is putting me on, aren't they? This isn't real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what.
I
I know if I go down the ghost route, I'm just gonna come out. I mean,
But
well,
more of a
that's the thing,
skeptic.
isn't it? Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like that's the point,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
isn't that an indicator of where you should focus your effort?
Well, I suppose it's up to us. You can go, we can all go start down the ghost route. Maybe that's what we should say. Let's start down the ghost route, and if we come out on the other side. Well, okay, are we going to do this challenge, or do you guys want to do one of the other ones?
I mean,
I
I'm all
I,
for it.
I do kind of like this one. I like Dan's too. What do you think, Dan?
I like mine or Travis's. I think yours, Mike, might be a bit too much coordination, and it might. I think I think it would be better. I think me or Travis's is what I'm gonna go with. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, in that case, maybe we should just try and do like a mix of both. Like find the best evidence that scares us, and to spend some time spooking ourselves, finding what scares us, and then find some evidence that's like, ooh, this is compelling and spooky. You know,
Sure.
I don't know. What do you
It's
guys
kind of a
think?
fusion of the two.
A fusion.
Because what we're saying is
Okay.
like to me the most actually frightening things are things that are supposed to be real. Like it's easy to dismiss and be not afraid of movies and stuff like that, which are genuinely like obviously fiction. But if you find something that's actually compelling, that to me is probably more frightening.
Yeah, more like the idea of it.
I guess that is just Travis's. Let's just do Travis's.
Yeah, I think it's one or the other. I don't think it'd be too hard to do both.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
let's do Travis's. But we can have fun with it. If you guys want to scare yourselves, we can talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to get afraid.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, we need to pick
An honorific.
an honorific.
What's the opposite of a skeptic?
A true believer.
A believer, yeah.
We can't. I don't think we can use that one.
a boo believer. A
Uh,
boo believer.
Boo. Yeah.
The vampire.
I was just thinking like Dracula. How is Dracula? Can we just do Dracula?
The paranormal paragon.
The scariest, the scaredest skeptic.
That's pretty
The-
good, actually.
The
scaredy pants.
scaredy cat. Scaredy pants.
I like the idea of mixing the skeptic with something scary, spooky, whatever.
Spooky, scary skeptic.
The spooky skeptic.
The s-
Scary boy.
the,
Scary
the skeleton skeptic.
I like our method.
zombie.
Our method of coming up with these honorifics is just like spooky word person, boy scary boy. We'll get there.
Terrified turnip.
Why do you always come back to turnip?
Do we?
Yeah, we do. It
Yeah.
comes up a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I did. Well, see, now that you said that, now I won't say it anymore.
The darkest.
Turnip.
The Lord of Darkness.
Something
The spine tingler.
something supernatural.
I kind of like the spine tingler. Supernatural sleuth.
Chiller. Chilling. Chester.
The something of the bizarre.
The hair raiser.
The bone.
Crusher.
The blood curdler.
The ogre.
The all-seeing eye.
The chill seeker.
The chill seeker. Something seeker.
Petrifier. Dr. Mysterious.
The scream seeker. The screaming skeptic.
I
Kinda
like
that.
scream seeker better than screaming skeptic.
Creepy Charlie.
That just sounds like creeping Charlie, which is just
Yeah.
plant.
Yeah, it's a scary plant.
It is. You don't want that
Yeah.
in your yard.
It can really take over. It's like the zombie of plants.
Yeah.
Plants and zombies.
The trick or treater.
What was yours, Mike? The scream
screaming-
seeker.
Scream seeker or the screaming skeptic. The
I like the
super-
scream seeker.
Scream seeker. It's
Maybe not.
the skeleton. Scream skeleton. Screaming. The petrifier. The
I said that one already.
Oh, sorry. The phantasmic. Funk.
The cryptic creeper.
Poltergeist. Poltergeist. There's a lot of P words. Hold on. I guess it doesn't have to alliterate or rhyme. It could just be, the shadowy boy.
The ghost. Just the ghost.
How about the dancing skeletons?
Truth seeker.
Truth seeker's not bad.
The
I like
truth
that.
is out there.
It's
I kinda
simple.
like that. Yeah, the truth.
The X File. Agent Mulder.
Agent Mulder's
Spooky
not bad.
spooky Mulder.
Spooky Mulder.
I kind of like that actually. I know we've typically gone away from those, but that's a reference that I think we could get away with.
Yeah.
Agent Mulder.
No,
Agent-
Spooky Mulder. That's his nickname in the show.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, like in the first episode.
It comes back. But yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
Alright. Well, I'm not so big on Spooky Mulder. I kind of like Agent Mulder. What
I mean,
about
do you
Agent
remember the intro to this episode? Cheese was had.
This the spine tingler. No?
Nah,
Truth Seeker. I kind of like Truth Seeker,
it's
honestly.
simple. Yeah,
True Seeker
I
is
go with
kind
That's
of
that.
my favorite.
I like that one. Yeah, I do like
It
that one.
speaks to the challenge, so we're looking for evidence.
Should we just let's go that before we go too far. The Mummy. Just the Mummy.
King Mummy.
King Mummy. That is the first thing I said when I kind of
I
like.
don't hate that.
I
I
don't
don't
hate
hate
that
that one
either.
either.
I kind of like King Mummy. King
I'm,
Mummy,
I'm
the
not.
Truth Seeker.
I'm not wild about it.
What was it?
King Mummy, the Truth Seeker.
King Mummy. King Mummy. Mummy is just a funny word. We all just agree on that.
Sounds like mommy.
You and I are on different pages on that.
You don't think
I
it's
don't.
funny?
I don't know. King Mummy is. It's nothing to me. I don't get it. I don't know.
It's like a mummy, but it's like a king of the mummies.
Yeah, you're the Mummy King. Maybe would it
Yeah.
make more sense if it was the Pharaoh mummy?
Well, I mean, that's part of my like. It makes no sense at all.
Oh, that's your criticism of it. It should be the pharaoh. Isn't pharaoh just Egyptian for king? Probably.
Probably.
I don't think so, but sure.
I can see
We're just making stuff up whole cloth, so why stop now?
What if we just made it like the horrible? What if it was just like the Hardy Boys?
What was it's the Hardly Boys?
That's a South Park.
Yeah, that
episode.
joke's
Oh,
been
okay.
done.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Fair. Well, yeah.
How about just Scooby Doo?
Scooby Don't.
Scooby Don't.
Scooby Don't. Scooby Don't.
Velma. How about just Velma?
Velma.
I think Truth Seeker is the like simple and effective.
Yeah.
It's not as exciting.
It's not as good as King Mummy. That's for sure.
You know, famously that King Mummy reference.
Yeah, the famous King Mummy.
You know that Universal Pictures movie, King Mummy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably a movie, honestly.
King Mummy. All right. I will concede to True Seeker or Scooby Don't. If we're not doing the Mummy King.
I do like Scooby Don't.
I do like Scooby Don't too.
All right. I'm good
Or
with that.
Velma.
Yeah, Velma's too. I mean, I will say, like, out of all the Scooby Doo characters, besides Shaggy, she's the only one that has a personality.
I think they're making a movie about her, actually,
Really?
in the near future. I could be
Weird.
wrong.
Eh,
I would still
whatever.
vote Scooby Don't.
I'm good with
Because-
Scooby Don't.
Yeah.
Scooby Don't. Don't Scooby.
Yeah. Okay.
Scooby Dooby Doo.
Scooby Dooby Don't, Dan. All right. Okay, so we have a challenge. We have our honorific forecast. I guess I don't know. I know Travis tends to be more studious than me and Dan in these endeavors that we do.
Yeah.
That
I
isn't
think
just
that's a compliment.
you should.
I do have a real good knack of getting deep down those YouTube rabbit holes, though.
That's true.
If
Yeah.
something's interesting.
You have maybe a little bit more time to just like. I mean, I probably won't be like sitting here watching YouTube videos of like paranormal whatever with the kids walking around. So my time to do research may be a little bit constricted.
But it also will constrict it to probably the wee hours of the morning, which will be extra spooky. I don't know. I could see either of you guys doing well. I also I'm good at researching things and watching YouTube. I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens.
I think it's all even playing field. I think it's gonna be great.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's do this. Let's no. So let me do that again. Let's boo this.
Doesn't work.
Let's boo this.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Let's boo this.
Hello, it is me, Dan Killer. Ha 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 ha. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Isn't it great? These guys are pretty good at what they do. Oh, goodness. I wonder what they're going to get up to in the interim. Thanks, Dankula. Yeah, we just wanted to try something a little different, a little Halloween themed thing. We were hoping to get this released on Halloween, but I've heard, and I strongly believe that the day after Halloween is way spookier than Halloween itself. If you guys like this type of thing, you can let us know. It got super, super long, but I feel like we had a lot to say. So take it away, Dankula. Back to the show. Ooh, spooky.
Welcome back to the Perpetual Incompetence Podcast. As a reminder, we recorded the first part of the podcast 2 weeks ago, and since then we've been on the trail of all things paranormal, with the hope that we could find conclusive evidence of the supernatural. Let's discuss initial thoughts, and then we can figure out who found the most compelling evidence. Who wants to go first? I will go first, apparently.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, I kind of want to wait.
Fair
Let's
enough.
see what you guys have.
All right, so yeah, let's do overall thoughts, and then we'll do the actual evidence stuff.
Okay.
I came into this challenge with the hope that there was like, I don't follow this field very closely. I don't have like notifications on like compelling ghost evidence or whatever. So I was sort of hoping that we would do this, and I would find something that was like, dang, that's perfect. That proves it. They're real. It's a thing that I just didn't hear about. That didn't really happen. I didn't find anything that really, made my jaw drop or nothing conclusive. There is some interesting stuff out there, which I will show at the end of this. But overall, my takeaway from this whole thing has been that ghost hunters are generally I should say we're not going to be attacking anybody that's professional ghost hunter or the people that truly believe, but I don't see it, and I sort of think that a lot of it is people seeing and experiencing what they want to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started
That's a very nice way to say it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we'll try to be gentle, I guess.
Try to be gentle, sure.
Yeah.
So I started off like, let's go high level. I Googled, most compelling evidence for paranormal or ghosts or whatever. And on YouTube, that just leads you to a bunch of like clickbaity, fake, like TikTok, whatever compilations, or like tiny little snippets of just TV ghost shows. And like, I mean, okay, we should also reiterate that I think aliens are separate from ghosts, and I focus most of my attention on ghosts because I think aliens are genuinely compelling. And there's like, we mentioned, I think in the first half, that I think we all sort of are open to the idea that aliens are real. It's just a question of like what they are and like, all that stuff. So I didn't do a lot of time doing any research on aliens, sort of because I do think that there is some reality there. And for people that haven't seen it, they should check out I think it's called just the Tic Tac video from Colonel Fravor.
Indeed.
Like there's like genuine evidence that's been like authenticated by the United States military as like being, nope, this wasn't faked. This is a real thing that we encountered while flying a jet. So,
Indeed. If this is where we're gonna stop talking about aliens, unless Dan, you have more to say about them.
I focus entirely on aliens.
Okay.
oh, you cheated. That's too easy.
Okay, well I didn't because I spent like the first week looking at ghosts and just I don't know. It was exactly what I expected it to be. Just nothing.
What did you expect it to be, Dan?
I expected it to be just people seeing what they want to see, like Travis was saying, or like
Yeah.
something unexplained, something that they can't explain. So the most logical conclusion is that it's a ghost. I don't know. It's just it's not believable to me.
Yeah. All right, then I'll finish my thing and then you guys can go through yours. But I avoided aliens because I like I said, I think it's too easy to make a compelling case here, and I purposely tried to find something that I didn't already believe, which is not the case for most of these ghost hunters that are on TV and YouTube. So I did my initial search on YouTube, and there was mostly just like the reason I brought up aliens was because if you search for like footage of aliens, there's like a wealth of like semi compelling YouTube videos out there. Like people have been putting up like we saw this, and like there's like actual genuine stuff, sort of. There are also fake stuff and people just like taking a picture, or, taking a video of somebody shining a flashlight in the sky or whatever. Um, but like for ghost stuff, like there's not much on YouTube, which I guess I don't know was sort of disappointing as a starting point. But I came to realize it's because there's never any actual evidence. Like it's never recreatable. It's never done in a scientific way. It's just like sometimes there is weird stuff that happens that's captured, like knocking noises or some things move, and of course there's always the wind argument. Like most of it is easily explainable, but sometimes there is weird stuff that happens.
But
So
it's
that's what
like,
I tried. Go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it seems like a lot of times it's the first thing they go to is like, oh, it's a ghost, which
Right.
is, but like, if you hear a bump somewhere, there's a million things it could be before being a ghost, I guess.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll
Well,
get
it
into
just
it, but
you start with the if you start with the thought that ghosts actually exist, it's a lot easier to think. But like if you start from the perspective like ghosts don't exist, and then you're like, I heard a voice on a staticky thing, like that could be so many different things, you know? Like
yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Well, there's also like it's kind of the God of the gaps fallacy. You guys
yeah,
familiar?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, we can't explain it, so it has to be ghosts. The if anybody listening to this has never looked into logical fallacies, you should just go find a convenient infographic, read them all, and then watch a political debate and be blown away.
Yeah.
but 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 one of them is God of the Gaps, and is basically the idea is if you can't explain it, the fallacy comes from like back in the day. It's like we can't explain why the planets move the way they do, because we're the center of the universe. So obviously God does it or whatever, and then science
yeah,
figured out how it actually works. So it's kind of like
yeah,
any little thing that can't be explained in this case is ghosts. So
right.
it's an unlogical way to think.
But I don't even know if that necessarily applies because a lot of it can be explained pretty easily.
Right.
It's just uh, like a much more logical explanation is pretty readily available most of the time.
Well, it's probably closer to Occam's razor, being that the simplest explanation is probably the most correct one, and that like if you hear a knocking sound, is it more likely that there are like transdimensional ghosts, or that the energy that was left over from somebody that died 70 years ago, just happened to knock on a floorboard, or is there a squirrel down there, or like there are a million simple explanations. Why do we have to come up with a fantastical one?
Well, the problem with
Yeah.
when you bring up the term Occam's razor is that to somebody who believes in ghosts is going to tell you, well, the simplest explanation is that a ghost did it. You know,
But that's
I
not an
mean,
explanation.
yeah. Well, that's the problem with Occam's razor is it's not like a scientific principle. It's more of like a turn of phrase. But
Sure.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even if that was the explanation, like, there's no, like, a ghost in no way is a simpler explanation.
yeah, well, it is if you believe in ghosts, Dan. That's my point,
That
I guess.
it explains
Okay.
everything if you believe in
Well,
ghosts.
okay. Even if you believe in ghosts, explain what a ghost is, please.
Yeah,
And
we'll get to that.
We'll get
then
into that.
let's
Yeah.
get like a peer review. Like, let's get a definition. Yeah. Anyways. it's
Speaking of not compelling evidence or not sufficient explanations, I watched. So my initial research didn't turn up really anything super compelling. So I jumped into a variety of like ghost hunting shows or like just that sort of thing. Things on YouTube. Netflix had a new thing come out this week called 28 Days Haunted,
Ooh.
in which they had a really like smart idea, something I'd never seen before, where they had I think three teams of ghost hunting people stay in one haunted location for 28 days. So they did one location for a long period of time, which is, I mean, generally these things are always like, we spent one night there and we found ghosts or whatever. This one
Yeah.
was pretty well done. I do have some complaints about it. I'll get to those in a little bit here, but uh, let's talk about some things that are not compelling evidence, in my opinion. Energy. When people say I can feel an energy here or negative energy, that does not. That's nothing. It's,
correct.
it's just like much of this is like people's mind. I suspect. I don't know. It's mind body reactions, right? So they suspect, they think that they're at a haunted house, and there's a little bit of fear there, and maybe it's like the evolutionary or biological where they're like, hey, this is a scary place, we should leave. Maybe that's what they're feeling. I don't know, but it in itself is not evidence. It's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. I actually, so I have a presentation for you guys, but definitely falls into part of it. I have a whole list of things that are unusable by science because they cannot be verified or debunked. You know,
Sure.
an important part of science is that you have to have like fail conditions. You know what I mean? So when you're running a test, it's the if it doesn't do this, then this is not the case. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if you go in there and everything is uh, this is proof, but nothing is no ghosts here, or whatever. So science,
Yeah. So I suspect there'll be some overlap between what you've got and what I've got. So feel free to jump in on some of these too, obviously.
yeah,
So the next thing that's not compelling evidence is like flickering lights in old houses. I mean, it's just like old electrical wiring is, it's just faulty. It's not. It comes back to what's the simplest explanation. Like, how would a ghost even cause that? And people are like, oh, the lights are flickering. Like, okay, as a human being, how would you cause that? And like, how is it that when you become a ghost, you somehow get the ability to interrupt electricity or whatever? Like, it's just the logic of the ghost powers. So flickering lights doesn't do much for me. And that like so many of these things are always incredibly random.
yeah.
It's not repeatable. It's just like it's interpreting randomness in however way you see fit.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would say it's akin to, flipping a coin and every time it lands on heads, that's proof that ghosts exist. It's kind of the same thing.
right.
Uh yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
then the next one is mediums. This 28 days haunted thing was had a heavy focus on mediums, and power to these people. They are very passionate about it, and I genuinely believe that they believe in what they're doing. Um, but it's just so much of the show ended up being like dramatic music and sound effects with a person just like sitting there saying like I feel this or I see this, and I don't know, it just doesn't do a lot for me. It like if mediums could legitimately contact the spirits of like dead people, why wouldn't there be a medium on every single police department roster? Like solving murders would be the easiest thing in the world, right? Because if
Yeah.
you have like if ghosts are spirits left over with unfinished business because they were like killed or whatever, you just have a medium come in, talk to the ghost, and then bing bang boom, you find your killer. I
Well,
mean, that would be it.
you,
Go ahead.
Travis, there are cases in which that were solved by psychics or mediums, they solved the
Yeah.
murder. Uh,
Yeah,
that
I
there
know
was
that
that
there
is a
are.
thing that happens. I mean, I don't know if there's any validity to it or if they put an innocent person in jail, but they
yeah,
solved
there was
the
kind of a big one that happened where I think they arrested somebody based on primarily like a psychic had said that this I forget what it was, but like the psychic got arrested because she was just lying about it. Oh, I wish I could remember what that was, who that was. Some lady. And then she was all that was over, and then she went back to being a psychic. I have a lot to
Yeah,
say about psychics, but we're not talking about them
talk
necessarily
about
today.
psychics.
Well, we
Well,
sort
I
of
mean,
are.
I
It's a
suppose we
major
could
part of
have.
it.
I mean, it is like a paranormal thing. I guess we could have gotten into it. I did not, for the
Yeah.
record. So I don't know anything about psychics. There you go.
Well, I think mediums generally believe that they are doing psychic stuff. So
Yeah.
it is tangential at least. It's much of what they say is like managing their psychic energy. If you haven't seen it, 28 Days Paranormal or 28 Days Haunted is very heavy on psychic energy and stuff. Let me drop you a few direct quotes from the show.
Hmm.
So this was a guy that they had one medium who was frightened by some of the experiences that she had, so she didn't want to do something anymore. So then one of the other guys said, "I think I'm finally ready to tap into my own psychic abilities." Another guy said, "It's hard to
Okay.
get last names psychically," which I thought was funny. Like, why don't ghosts ever say their last names?
They don't need to, Travis.
Yeah,
They're
it's
really
just like
informal in the afterlife.
right. Let's see. This one was somebody that I didn't believe at all. It's incredible that she's able to communicate with me through my subconscious and give me this information directly.
Hmm.
So that's when they don't hear anything, or whatever. This guy's like, "Oh, a ghost told me this." Let's see. If an innocent spirit is still trapped at a location, I kind of wonder if it's because another active spirit is anchoring them to the spot. So the idea of like spiritual warfare and like spirits like being able to like trap other spirits and stuff is a big theme in 28 Days Haunted. And I don't
How do
I don't
they
Uh,
know.
know? How do they know
well,
any of that?
I mean, the
Right.
thing about it is that you can't disprove it. I mean,
Yeah.
Exactly.
uh,
There's a
which
ghost war happening around me right now.
it's an
Prove me
exciting thing to
wrong.
think about. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the one along the same line was the dark arts that were practiced on this land opened up some sort of spiritual portal, but for some reason that doorway is being clogged by an evil energy.
Mm. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a provable thesis, right?
Yeah.
A spiritual portal was created, but it's clogged now because of spiritual energy. It just like I don't know. If you want to prove that something exists, that's not the way to go about it.
Yeah. I mean, it
And
could be a
then
cool book or something, like a novel.
sure, yeah, I'm on board with that. The most egregious example possibly was um I won't even get into why they do this, but this one of the guys has this thing that he calls the God helmet, and it looks like it's
Go
like
on.
a prop straight off of like Battlestar Galactica, and it has
Fantastic.
this like glowing LED lights and stuff that flicker. Like it's absurd. And you know how like when they do these ghost hunting shows, they do these little infographics that explain how the ghost hunting equipment works, and like this thing uses EMF to interpret environmental frequencies, or whatever.
Yep.
The one that they did for the God helmet goes like this. When a psychic taps into paranormal energy, it's often difficult to filter out spirits and maintain prolonged connections to them. But the God Helmet acts like a switchboard, using neuromagnetic pulses to help psychics target specific entities and communicate one-on-one. Like it's a helmet with lights on it.
So let me tell you guys a little something on the side here. So me and Travis, we work together. I know we said that before. And I am an engineer. Like that's what I went to school for and did for quite a while. And so as we've been talking, we try not to talk about the podcast, but I was moved, so I had to tell Travis my idea. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, I think I might start making ghost hunting equipment and selling it because like what I could literally do is create something, whatever it is, as long as it has blinky lights and maybe some noises or something like that, and like, yeah, this senses EMF. I mean, it does that. Here you
The more
go,
the more
$500.
unreliable, the better.
So anyway, look to see those on the market, and I'll have more to say about that later.
Yeah. The Kickstarter incoming.
uh, yeah. Anyway,
All right. Other non-compelling evidence. The mag light questioning, where they take a mag light and they set it on a table and they turn the light or the bulb of it so that it's just barely on the edge of being on or off. And this has been like proven scientifically and admitted by the manufacturer that like sometimes when you do that, it will turn on or off at random. Presumably because there's like electrical charge that builds up and then it turns on the light and then it like, I don't know, breaks connection, whatever. It's been proven that this is 100% random. But when people set a mag light down and they just ask questions into the darkness and then the light turns on randomly, they interpret that as a response to their question. It's like you said, it's inherently unrecreatable. So why would you spend your time using such unreliable methods if you're trying to prove anything?
well, yep.
It's like
I can sense
it all
like
gets
anger growing in you.
I feel like Travis is he's getting worked up there.
okay. So the thing is that there is compelling evidence out there. There is something weird that happens. Like sometimes people capture stuff that is unexplainable, genuinely. So I find it frustrating when like people are spending so much time and energy and effort using like why wouldn't you try to prove things scientifically? Why don't you try like, you know, UFOs and aliens 30 years ago was like a crackpot. If you believed in aliens, you were like a weirdo and whatever. Maybe ghosts are headed towards something like that, or people would start like researching it scientifically. So it is a little frustrating that way, and that like sometimes people do get things on camera that are like, yep, I don't know. I'm a pretty stout skeptic, and I can't really explain what's going on there.
Yeah,
So it's frustrating though when people are like, even like this show on Netflix, like you got funding to do a TV show, and like you could have done so much cool stuff. Like, I'll jump to my what I think Netflix should do for season 2 of this 28 Days Paranormal or Haunted thing. They should have two teams, one skeptic, one with ghost hunters at each location. They should have 6 total locations rather than 3, and they should have 3 that have actual historic haunting, whatever, and then 3 basically control locations. So if the ghost hunters are at the control location, they're like, "Oh, this must have been like a mass murder situation." Like, nope, this was built 20 years ago and nobody's ever died here. Um,
I like that. I love that idea.
Yeah, that's great.
they
I
should
like
do
that.
it like a scientific study, basically. Um, and then they just like, clean all the information out of the house that might have told who used to live there. Because like some of the mediums in this 28 Days Haunted like pick names out of the air of people that used to live there, and I suspect it's because these places are museums now, and there's like this is a picture of old Jeb Bush, or maybe not Jeb Bush, Jeb,
Wow.
yeah,
Oh, no, he died.
not
Jeb
that
Bush.
one, a different one, Jeb Wilkinson.
Yeah.
So then, like when they're doing EVPs, like, is it you, Jeb? Uh, just take all the information out of the houses so that people don't have anything that they can research and kind of fudge the needle a little bit. And then, Mike, the what you didn't mention here of your ghost hunting equipment, your actual good idea for ghost hunting equipment would be
Wait,
have
hey,
your like.
hold on. Don't I got to go into this in detail. So I will explain that if you're going to talk about my good idea.
So I'll just say that for this next season of the show, they should incorporate your equipment scattered throughout all the houses. I'll say that,
Maybe
and then you can go into it.
when we're done here, let's workshop a brand name and see what we come up with.
All right.
Because it is frustrating when people don't do things right, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what they should do instead. They should do it, scientifically. Like if you are setting out to try to prove the existence of something, just do it right.
Yeah, because I mean, if you get something that would make me be like, oh, huh, then that would be I would want to have more of that, you know what I mean? But, like, if it's
Right.
just, like, people talking to themselves, you know,
Yeah.
thinking that they're talking to dead people, then that's so I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't like it.
Yeah. And then the other thing would be if you want to make a compelling TV show on Netflix, you have to have the skeptics that are on site living there also, but also at the end of that, you have to release all of the footage. Not just like the final cut. You have to like release all of the footage and the data collected and all that stuff.
Hey, let's the three of us do a pitch to Netflix. I bet we could do something.
Yeah, I think I just did. But
Yeah.
yeah, it would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's that. Other things that are not compelling: flash photography in dirty and poorly lit environments. You're just asking to have things not turn. It's like I don't know, just poor pictures and like, oh look, an orb, or oh look, a
Yeah, the
shadow.
orbs.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I got a funny story for you guys, real quick, a little tangent. So while I was going to college, I got a job as a night security guard at a hotel. Uh, and my first day there, I was like sitting there looking at the security cameras, and the other security guard, was training me in, and he was a nice person. And but he went on to tell me, like, oh yeah, just so you know, this place is haunted. I was like, oh, go on. And so he's like, yeah, I've seen orbs. Apparently, several years ago, somebody died in this hotel. People die in hotels all the time, by the way. That's a thing that
sure,
happens.
that makes sense.
But anyway, so he said he's seen orbs, and he saw like an apparition or something. And this is my first day on the job, so I was like, "Oh yeah, cool, dude, great." So anyway, several weeks later, so the way it worked is I was the security guy, and then there's a guy that ran the front desk, and that person changed out fairly often. Every day was a different person. And one night, I had this one guy came, and he's like, "Oh, hey," as I'm kind of talking to him, getting to know him, he's like, "Hey, if you ever talk to the other security guard, make sure you tell him that you've been seeing ghosts, because I've been feeding him that this place is haunted for the past 6 months." So, like, he's been like making up the story. So, anyway, that's the thing that happened.
I was, when I was we did this, overnight thing when I was, in Indonesia at the high school I taught at, we did this overnight camp thing, and, they had security cameras, and one of the teachers was sitting there watching the security cameras, um, just make sure everything was fine or whatever, and then she, like, started screaming and, like, ran out and was like, "Oh, I saw it, there's a ghost in there." So everyone obviously was like, "Oh my god," freaking out, and then a few of us went in there to look at it, and it's 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 just a spider, like, making a web in front of the camera. That's all it was. I don't know, that was pretty funny to me.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, more to your point, Mike. I also did nighttime security while going through college. I didn't do it at a hotel. We did like at a couple different locations, like on docks and like industrial buildings and stuff like that. And I will say, like, I think part of this thing, getting back to the mind playing tricks on the body, is if you just like walk around someplace after hours when there's nobody else around and the lights, maybe like most of the lights are turned off to conserve energy or whatever, there's like a genuine feeling of like it feels spooky. I think maybe it's because like, I don't know, built-in survival mechanism or something like, hey, this isn't a cool place to hang out. You should go to somewhere better lit or whatever. Maybe that's it. But like, I never saw anything paranormal or whatever. It just like it can feel spooky being in like dark places where there's normally people and there aren't any currently. It's just like I understand the impulse to like get the feelings of energy, but it's nothing. It's just like I think it's your mind's built-in defense mechanism saying like, "Hey, something could be hiding behind there. You should get out of here." I think that there is an element of that in much of what these mediums are perceiving.
Well, I mean, I would argue that that's probably all it is. But are you done? Do you
I
have
have one
more?
more. The
Okay.
spirit box is nothing.
The spirit
For
box.
anybody who hasn't wasted their time watching ghost hunting shows, a spirit
Uh,
box is like, um, it's essentially a radio. But if you've ever been on a radio where somebody's like flicking through the channels and you're just getting, bits and bobs from the various channels as you're passing through,
yeah,
this
it's
is
that.
that, but it's faster, and that it changes channels like 50 times a second or something. I don't know. And then they, you know, if you believe what it does, they say that ghosts can use that channel switching to communicate. They can use the frequencies, the untuned frequencies to communicate, which is absurd. Again, how do you like how do you become a ghost and then get the superpower of being able to like communicate information via frequencies? Like
Well,
if you understand that like frequencies are like energy and wavelengths and stuff, like how do you as a ghost find a way to communicate to transmit your auditory voice through an electronic communication system that like it just like it's absurd.
I mean, have you ever been a ghost though? Like
True.
you don't know what they can do.
True. Well, it's kind of like, I mean, if I was to design something like that, it would be, I'd say like maybe let's have just like letters, and then like they can pick the letters, and then basically you've invented
Like
the
a
Ouija
Ouija
board.
board.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Sure. But then
so
there's like the REM pod in the same thing where it says this thing picks up on environmental temperature and EMF fluctuations and translates that into letters or words, which to me like okay, explain to me how you can take a change in temperature and turn that into a word or a letter. Like how is that translation made? It's just like you're communicating seemingly unconnected pieces of energy and turning it into words. Do you know what I mean? Like how do you make that translation? How do you go
I don't
from
know.
A to B?
That sounds like a fun problem, and I kind of want to design something, a new way of doing that, and we'll
Sure.
sell it.
So
Call
anyway,
it
so
the
all of that said, these are my unreliable pieces of information. Here are the questions that I'm left with when evaluating whether ghosts are real or not. Part of what we just talked about. When did we decide that electromagnetism is the thing that spirits can use to communicate with us? I think it honestly goes back to Ghostbusters, the movie, because I think that's
that
what they said.
sounds
And
accurate.
then if we believe that ghosts can physically interact, why don't people just put out like a pane of glass, like a mirror, and do just a really light dusting of like, salt or dust or chalk over that? And like, why wouldn't you say like you write your name on this mirror? That'd be pretty compelling if you could get something to write letters on that. But nobody ever does that because that would be I don't know. That'd be pretty compelling. If you got a ghost to write their name and you videoed it and it's just like a name just showed up in the chalk, I'd believe it. So, open challenge to anybody that can capture that, I guess. Other questions. Why are dark spirits always in attics or basements? Presumably they'd be where the people usually spent their time, right? Most people aren't in their basement or attic all the time. They're on the main floors of the house.
Here's another
But
question for you that's related to that. They always do it in the dark, like on the ghost hunting shows and stuff. But it seems to me like when people are explaining their ghost, sightings that people have, they're not in the dark usually. Sometimes they are,
right.
but like there's no reason to have the lights turned off. It'd probably be easier to see a ghost if the lights were turned on, I would guess.
Yeah, if you live in a house and you're having paranormal whatever activity, like you are not walking around with the lights off, right? So
Yeah.
like shouldn't ghost hunters recreate with consistent variables? I don't know. If ghosts are human souls, why do they appear clothed? So if you're like a human soul, why do you wear clothes? Can ghosts choose what clothes they're wearing? Why do they have hats, canes, or dresses? Do ghosts get to choose their fashion, basically? Are there ghosts of animals? And if so, how small do they get? Are there ghost rats or whatever? So people believe that there are ghost cars and ghost trains and ghost animals. I don't believe it.
Ghost bugs. There'd be so many
Right.
ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so those are the questions. If you can't tell, I didn't find a lot that I found super compelling. There are a couple things that I can't explain. I mentioned it a little bit earlier in that I think that there is genuinely some phenomenon here, and people do occasionally capture stuff that's like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how you would recreate that. There are maybe some possible explanations, but sometimes there are things that are, I don't know. it could be something, I guess. But overall, I'm, you know, apparently slightly furious at the ghost hunting profession in general.
Uh, okay, I'm gonna go.
So, yeah, go ahead.
All right. Do you want to show what evidence you have, Travis, or
Sure,
what
we can do that now.
compelling thing? Yeah,
Yeah. What do
let's
you
do
got?
that.
So, Mike, you've seen this. This is the Expedition X, that ghost town,
Oh yeah, yeah.
aptly named. Yeah, I'll preface this as they're investigating like a Nevada City, which is, well, an abandoned ghost town. The crew had like, it was legitimately abandoned. They had the place to themselves, so there's not other people around filming at the same time, and it's pretty remote. It's not in the middle of a city. And if you watch the YouTube video, which I will link in the show notes, it's like an 8-minute selection from one of the episodes. It's probably worth watching the entirety of it. But they witnessed a door opening on a cabinet, which is not super compelling in my opinion. Then there was a loud bang, which also is interesting, hard to explain, but is not super compelling. And then they had one of their cameras set up in a saloon, and the saloon door opens a little bit and then it closes again, which for me could be wind blowing it open and then it returning to its natural spot. But then like the camera just like gets knocked over, which I don't see the wind doing that, and I mean, you don't see any evidence of an animal happening, or an animal being there and pushing it or bumping against it. So I don't know how the camera gets knocked over, but that's the primary interesting thing in this video for me.
Very spooky. I'm watching it right now. The scary music and noises in the background definitely amp up the intensity.
Yeah, there's a lot of editing that, I mean, is there to make it more engaging, I guess. But I
Yeah.
could do without the cymbal crashes and stuff to really punctuate stuff. I'm going to link another YouTube video from Ghost Files, where it's the other side of ghost hunting, where they're using unreliable equipment or whatever, and they're throwing questions out into the ether, and then their unreliable machine calls them a nerd, which I found very funny.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I'll link that also, but yeah, I'll just do the one piece of evidence. That's my thing.
Okay. I'm gonna jump in here.
Okay.
So what I did, I also watched a lot of the same shows, I think, as Travis. I there was a couple things that came up that I would say are like, oh, that's, it's creepy, I guess. I don't know if it's proof of ghosts, but hey, you had made a TV show. I would say one of the least compelling ones. I kind of bounced around from a bunch of different shows, and one of them, I think it was called Kindred Spirits, and there were ghosts in this house that were, attacking this family. And when they were in there, they found out that the ghosts were warning them that there might be mold in the house. So
Oh.
that so then they had a guy come and check to see if there's mold, and he said, "Well, I mean, there's a little bit on this window, so you should probably clean that up." So that's
You
why the
know,
ghosts were harassing the people to warn them
your
about mold. They're mold ghosts.
your regular amount of mold, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I recommend watching it just because is entertaining. Um, so I mean that yeah, I have my most convincing, or I would say most compelling, bit of evidence is also from that Expedition X show. I'll show it in a little bit. Um, so I watched a bunch of those shows. I found that I listened to a bunch of ghost hunting podcasts and stuff, and they listening to proof of ghosts is not immensely compelling or proof of anything. So kind of stopped doing that. I went down a rabbit hole and was listening to a bunch of stuff about aliens. I know Dan is going to talk about aliens, but What I would say is I listened to a lot of stuff, and I was like, "Oh man, we're the aliens. It's happening." And then like there's a government program that's going to look into UAPs, which is what they're calling UFOs now, to remove the stigma against that word.
Yeah.
And then NASA also has started a research group to look into UAPs, which is interesting. But then as I went further down the rabbit hole, I kind of realized like, oh, so the evidence that we have is this evidence from these fighter pilots, that's what's been released, and that's kind of the only real compelling evidence that there is. And it's basically everybody just holding their hands in the air going, eh," So I
I
kind
will
of I
say
was
there's a Holly showed me this on the newest season of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. There is an episode on a UFO sort of encounter, I think from the 80s or 90s maybe, where there was an actual like a meteorologist around Lake Michigan who like I think something like 50 or more people observed it and including like a sheriff, and it's like a really well documented UFO encounter.
yeah,
So I would say go watch that.
I think I did watch that. Well, not the Unsolved Mysteries, but I've heard of that incident. But my point was that as far as evidence, besides people talking about it, their story about it, even if they're well credentialed, it's still, it's not proof. It's just compelling information.
Yep.
So anyway, that kind of ended up to being a dead end for me. So I went back to
Well,
ghosts. And
okay. c-
well, all
Compelling
right.
information. I mean, that's kind of essentially what proof is. Compelling information or something that, or at least I would say any evidence is better than
Well,
what we have for
yeah,
ghosts.
I think it's compelling or no, yeah, compelling information. It's not evidence.
yeah,
It
yes. There you go.
It's evidence, it's not proof.
Yes.
I don't think
Okay.
it's evidence because I mean I know that
It's
like in legal cases they have witnesses give their statements about what they saw, and that's great. But if you're trying to prove the existence of something that is heretofore unknown as real, eyewitness statements do not prove. They don't serve as evidence, in
well,
my
Yeah,
opinion.
well.
yeah.
Here's the thing. So speaking of legal cases, right? The legal system in the United States, even for criminal justice, where you need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, still doesn't have to be scientific proof of something. A judge could rule somewhere that a judge can basically rule whatever they want. It might get overturned. What's the word? I am not a legal person.
Overruled.
Not
I don't
overruled,
know.
but like if you don't like the outcome of your case, you go to the
Oh,
next.
appealed.
There's the one. We got it. So anyway,
Lawyers.
let's
I
it.
object.
Yeah, the legal system is not scientific proof. It's like the legal system can tell everybody that vaccines are gonna give everyone autism. That's what they're gonna do, and that doesn't mean there's any science behind it, which there isn't.
It's open
Uh,
to interpretation.
yeah. So anyway, going back to ghosts. So there's a lot there's a lot of problems with the way that people go looking after it. And I think a lot of ghost researchers um have the magic school bus version of the scientific method versus the actual one, you know so it's kind of like, I have a hypothesis, I do a test, and here's the end. Here's my conclusion. That's the end of it. But in real science, you have your hypothesis, you do a lot of testing, and then you show it to everyone. And then everyone else you can make a conclusion, but everyone else can tell you that's a bad conclusion. You did a bad job. This is
Yeah.
a bad test.
It's
That
the peer review is literally their job is to poke holes in your
Yeah,
case. Yeah.
and and the problem with ghost researchers that I see is that they get defensive about their data. It's like if a scientist says like, well, I mean, yeah, that's interesting, but this isn't proof, and they're like, it is proof. There's ghosts. You're an idiot. You know. So but that's not what science. I mean, scientists, it's their job, to say like, no, this is bad. This is not good data. That's how it works. And like you see this a lot with a lot of different pseudosciences where people get very defensive about their position, but as a scientist, you can't become defensive about your position. That means you're losing your objectivity to it. And that I think is the main flaw in a lot of this, is because they're unwilling to have somebody peer review it, and they won't listen to the results, because the idea is it's peer reviewed, people look at it, poke holes in it, and then instead of being like, oh, you're wrong, I'm gonna fight this tooth and nail, you say like, oh, these are valid points, I'm gonna go back and retest. That's how it works. So that's my soapbox. I'm going to probably get back on it a little bit as we're talking here.
I
But
will say as a counterpoint, like scientists are not infallible either, though. I mean, like there is definite value in pursuing the scientific method, but there are people who are skeptics to the point of zealotry, and that they will never entertain the idea of something being real that they don't currently believe in, and that's not good either.
no,
Yeah.
I mean, all that is the same problem from the other direction. That's all it is.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
It's these people are so stuck on their data that they're unwilling to see another person's point of view, and that's also bad science. But
Right, go ahead.
so let me pull up some. I got a lot of notes here. Hold on. Yeah. So another part of science. Let's talk about science for a little bit.
Tell me about science,
So
Mike.
let's talk about science for a little bit. So, what is science? You know, uh, it is a philosophy, right? That's what science is. I mean, if you look at the definition of it, and the purpose of science, the philosophy of science, is not that everything can be explained by natural phenomena. That tends to be the direction it leans. But science is a philosophy that prescribes a method for finding and defining truth, whatever the truth happens to be.
Sure,
And
it's a methodology.
yeah, it's a methodology, and the core concept of this is, everything should be able to be proven wrong. That's kind of like one of the core tenets of, the scientific method. It's like you need to have fail conditions in your test. Like if this does not happen or if this happens, then this is, inconclusive, And I think a lot of times this ghost hunting stuff needs to be, okay, let's say for a second, we maybe, as a scientist, you can't jump to the conclusion that ghosts don't exist. You're probably pretty safe in that, but maybe the best you could give a ghost hunter is like, this data is inconclusive for these reasons. And I think the main problem with a lot of their data is, it's sporadic and not well designed data collection methods. And basically, what it comes down to is a preponderance of spurious data does not make good data.
Right.
Uh, you know, so it's like if all your data is mostly nothing with a couple little blips in the graph, that even if there's a million people doing these tests and you get a million blips out of every million data points, that's not really proof of anything. That just proves that there's probably something wrong with your data collection method.
Yeah.
Or
So on that note, I think that ghost hunters, even they like intentionally go in the wrong direction on this, and that they inject additional randomness
yeah,
in order to
yeah,
create additional spurious data. One of the people on one of the teams on 28 Days Haunted had their little spirit box set up, but then they also they said like, we have this. It's basically like an electric wire split in half that would occasionally jump between the two, creating like an electric pop. And their justification was that they're introducing additional electricity into the air to give ghosts more power.
Oh no.
And I'm like, what you're actually doing
Oh no,
is
don't
just
do
creating
that.
like additional variables and making your stuff less believable. You're just like, if you find anything, then you're like, oh, is that something? Or is it just because you're like charging the air around you?
Having open electricity just sort of
Well, I mean, that's exactly it. Like when you're developing a scientific test, one of the biggest pains in the butt, but something that everybody has to do is remove variables
right.
so that you can
Right.
test the
Or at least
one
control
thing.
for them.
Yeah, control for them, and it's just like you can't control for variables by adding more variables. That's not how it works. All right. So anyway, so that's my little brief history of science and how
Science corner.
science, Mike's
Well, I
science
feel
corner.
smarter. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, I agree. You can't take skepticism as your religion. If you're gonna be a true skeptic, you have to be open to, um, truth. You can't say whatever that truth happens to be. And I would say if a ghost hunter followed some prescribed something, which I'm about to prescribe, and then they presented it to like a panel of people who might be interested in it, and then there would be something to say. Now let's get into my presentation.
It hadn't started yet.
Nope. All right. I'm gonna share my screen because I have a PowerPoint that we're gonna walk through here.
All right.
Okay.
I just want to say, I want to put it out there that this will likely come across as like we're a bunch of like grouchy, skeptic, angry, whatever. I would like nothing more than to like find actual proof that like, incontrovertible. Here is proof that ghosts are real and that everything we've been doing up to this point has been, good research. I would love to see that. I would love to be convinced that ghosts are the answer for what's going on out there. It's just the way that they're currently going about it makes it so that it's not going to happen probably in the near future at least. I wish that they were just better at convincing us.
That's a fantastic point, Travis, and that's a good segue into my presentation.
I just want to say, like, so Mike has a PowerPoint slide up right now with some really cool looking ghost hunter guys, I'm assuming, and then a picture of Casper the friendly ghost.
All right, Mike, take us in.
Take us
All right.
away.
So the title of my presentation here is "Why Ghost Hunting Methods Are Dumb and How to Fix Them" by Mike Hall. All right. So we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but the main kind of generalized problems of the ghost hunting methodologies is, I think, a lack of understanding of the scientific method. And the reason that this is important, I think, is that, if ghost hunters want to be taken seriously, then they need to, start amping up their scientific method and actually look into and learn how to make a convincing argument for their case, which I'm going to help them do. I think another problem is a lot of ghost hunters seem to be looking for a personal experience versus collecting data. This is certainly true for like ghost hunting shows because they're not there to actually collect data. They are there to make a TV show.
Yeah, and get like a cool shot or something.
Yeah. And I
Right.
mean, there's also, so ghost hunting shows are reality television. And so there is no reason that reality television has to be real. And there's, I mean, it's, they say it in like all behind the scenes stuff, you hear people talking about it, like it's all made up, like most of the stuff that they do, Travis showed me this video where this guy had gone to the Stanley Hotel and
Colorado.
and he had done his own investigation, and basically all the ghost hunting shows have been there. And in one point they went into the shed that they had that was like a bunch of mattresses and stuff in there, and like the guys were like, this is where they put all the mattresses where people die, so we're gonna, it's a room full of dead people, so we're gonna just talk to the spirits. And what the people that worked at the hotel said is like, no, we are a working hotel. We We do
We
not
would get we
hang
would
on.
get shut down if we did that.
Yeah, we don't hang on to the mattresses that all the people die on. Those are just ones that are waiting to get dumped or whatever. So,
You know,
anyways,
I'd like to
it's just a
pop in
straight up
here
lie.
and like lack of understanding of the scientific method. I think a lot of people who are ghost hunters would say it's not a scientific problem that they're trying to or thing that they're trying to find. So they shouldn't. The scientific method wouldn't. I mean, I'm just trying to put my mind in their mind.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I think that's what I was kind of getting at. Like, they're looking for a personal experience. They're not trying to prove to the world that ghosts exists. I
Yeah,
mean, if
But they
if
are
they
sort of.
but
well,
they.
if they really want to, then they need to follow the scientific method.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
yeah,
That's how you prove things. Yeah, you'll prove it to some people, people that, they believe they have their own personal experience, those people already believe you don't need to convince them. But for everybody else, that's kind of how to get stuff across in this world.
Yeah, but
And
if you name your show Ghost Hunters, it's kind of implied that you're like searching to find and prove that the thing exists, right?
yeah, I don't know.
It's not like ghost, experiencers or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right, but like I said, I mean, it's TV. They're making TV
Yeah.
shows. That's what they're really trying to do.
yeah,
Yep.
And then the other big problem is that they have to have fail outcomes for the data. Like, you have to have fail conditions. So, like, if this happens, then there's no ghosts here. So, like, that's not just for we go there and we didn't see anything. It's like, okay, if this data or like this flashlight turns off completely randomly, on and off completely randomly, then that's probably a failed condition. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Something to
The
ponder.
tests have to be repeatable too,
Yeah.
which these never are.
Yep. So along with that, so I have a little video here. So I was watching the Expedition X, and they had this one thing that showed up on their camera, and it's like, whoa, that looks like a ghost, kind of like you would see in a horror movie or something like that. Let me know when you guys have watched it. Kind of
oh yeah.
jittery, yeah, ghost. So
Jittery, creepy little ghost thing at the end of a hallway. Yeah.
yep. So it's a compelling video. It looks like a ghost, but it's uncorroborated. I mean, they got one video of a ghost looking guy walking across the hallway, and which is cool. It looks really cool. It looks creepy.
Yeah.
And but the problem is that there's more than likely, it's just a artifact of the recording. Maybe there's because they're recording digital video, so it's going to a SD card somewhere, and there could be, recorded over old data, copied bad data in there, and it just happened to be somebody walking across the screen. The problem is you don't know. It
Right.
like might be a ghost. So my solution would be that every video device needs a twin pointed in the exact same direction. And these devices should be the exact same model, set to the same settings. These cameras should record to separate storage devices to prevent corrupted data artifacts, like I was talking about. And optimally, these would be on separate power supplies. So, like, if one of them, you can't blame the external things. So, now let me paint a picture for you. If the same video happened and you had two videos sitting next, two cameras recording to separate devices on separate power supplies that recorded the exact same thing, that would
Yeah.
be like, whoa,
Yeah. Then it would be
that's something.
yeah, because the thing I immediately thought when I saw that was like, oh, it's probably just like some error on the image or something, like.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Yeah,
if
but
it was
if you
on
had
two completely separate video
yeah.
cameras, that would that
So
would that
yeah,
would be a lot more substantial. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah,
and
redundancy.
yeah, it's a redundancy, and it's self-corroborating. So it's not a artifact of the device. It's actually something that's there that's being recorded. So
Yeah, then
that would be my
not a
yeah.
matter of like, is it the camera? Then it's like, okay, what is this thing?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
So I think that would be a good solution for video. And these days, like, you can buy a GoPro for $500. These guys definitely have that much money to blow on cameras. They can put two GoPros next to each other all over the place.
yeah,
And
Yeah. Or you could make a specific ghost hunting camera that has like
Yeah.
two lenses like right next to each other that go to separate things. Like this is the thing that you could build and sell to ghost hunters for sure.
Yep, we'll add it to the list. All right, so next, EVP, the electronic voice phenomena. Same issue as video. So, like, it's just you can't be corroborated by one piece of evidence. So, I think, you see them sitting there with their little recording device, but if they had two of them next to each other that recorded the exact same thing, that would be much more convincing. But since it's always just one staticky voice, then it's kind of like, yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
So that would be my solution for both of those, is have two of them. And with the EVP, what I would do is actually set up an array of them in a room so that you could, as you're asking questions, maybe it's louder here than it is
Yeah.
over here, and you could have like a better image of what's happening in the room, which we'll get into more. We kind of talked about all the things that I think will never be verified by science when it comes to ghost huntings: personal feelings / sensations, or personal video or audio experiences. You can't prove them. They're
Yeah, if somebody could
Oop.
just be lying about it, then it's not proof. Yeah.
I also say that any photos are useless. They don't prove anything. They're too easy to fake and can't be corroborated. Spirit box, we've already gotten into it. Medium psychics, we've already been into it. All right, let's talk EMF sensors. So what is an EMF sensor? An EMF sensor detects changes in electromagnetic fields over time, and they basically create like it's sort of an average of the difference in like the changes in it, which will give you the power of the signal that's coming out of this. Is basically a radio antenna. That's kind of a very high overview of what happens. The vast majority that are used for ghost hunting are tuned to the frequency of AC voltage used in homes, i.e., 60 hertz in the U.S., 50 hertz in Europe, and they show the strength of the signal. So that's all they do. So there are a couple assumptions going on here. First, that ghosts manipulate EMF, which is, sure, why not? Let's say they do.
I mean, yeah, if nobody knows where that came from, but if we just operate under that assumption, then sure.
Yeah. All right. So then that also makes the assumption that ghosts are operating in 60 hertz or 50 hertz or some harmonic of that frequency that was going to basically interfere with the reading on the sensor. So that's something to consider. So basically, walking around and taking random readings throughout a house, it doesn't really tell you anything. It just tells you that that the signal's better somewhere. That's basically what it's doing. And when you move around with the sensor, it defeats the validity of the data, because what you're looking for is a change. You're not looking for, over here the signal's better, over here it's not as good. So
Right,
there's
moving around introduces a variable that you then don't control
yeah.
for.
So there's a device called a spectrum analyzer that collects data from a spectrum of frequencies, that would basically give you a change in all the frequencies over time. And they have like stuff. I used to use it for work all the time, and it would give you more ghost information. I guess that's what I would recommend to ghost hunters. Try that. It's better than an EMF sensor. Also, fun fact, the EMF sensors have an antenna on them, and most antennas are polarized. So as you turn the sensor around, it's going to give you different readings based on the polarization of the antenna. So I don't know. There's not a lot of data there. We need a better system. Temperature has the same problem as EMF. You need to stay in one spot and see a change over time, right? So moving around defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Particularly like up and down. Like houses are always like the temperature fluctuates all over the house
Yeah.
in different rooms, but then also vertically. Like if you put it on the floor versus you like raise it up to the ceiling,
Yeah.
like the temperature slightly is different everywhere.
Yeah, like
Yep.
every room in my house is a different temperature.
Yes. All right. So there must be a better system. Luckily, I've created one. All right. So
Okay, what am I looking at
So-
here?
all right. So this is my kind of high level schematic. So what these are Arduino microcontrollers that you can easily create a EMF sensor on. And what I want you to do is create an array of them. I could do this for you. Talk to me. Somebody send me an email if you're interested. And And so you create a sensor with these Arduino, these microcontrollers, and you put them in a room in a grid so that you can kind of see. If you look at the bottom down here, this is a room with the sensors laid out in a grid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the green ones would be like nothing's happening, and
And
then the
what's
red
that?
ones are
What's
like
that thing on the right there?
that's a ghost.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
For
anyway,
anybody that doesn't look at the actual presentation, there's like a hard schematic, like there's a chip, and then there's a circuit board, and there's like color coordinated positioning, and then there's a spooky ghost on the right side.
so basically what I want to do is you have these sensors, you set them in an array like there are on the bottom here. So it'd be like in this shape here, so that you have like, see, it's a bedroom, right? So like you have the changes real time happening in here. That data is getting pumped into this Raspberry Pi, which I would create a program that you'd be able to lay it out like this and see real time changes that are happening in there, and it would collect it over time so you could play back, right? So that way you could see, like, all right, say this one's can you guys see my mouse?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, great. So let's say this one turned red, like it was all green, and all of a sudden this one turned red. Like, oh, there's something happening over here. Like, and then it went away. That would not be immensely convincing. But now let's say this one turned red, then this one turned red, then this one turned red, and it is like, ooh, it's a ghost moving through the room. So the way I propose making this happen would be you set it up in a room and that is supposedly haunted, and you leave it there for like a week, and you take the data, you monitor it. Then you go in there and you bring the ghost hunters in, and you have them hang out there for a day, and you monitor it, but don't have them do anything. They just hang out in the room. And then on the last day or whatever, you have them talk to the ghost, be like, "Is there anyone here? You know, are we alone? Do you want to talk to me? Did you die in this bed?" You know, as they do. And then see if there's a change. So anyway, so basically you get real-time data, and you can see a difference. Is there, with the control with nobody in there, then with people in there, and then is there a difference when they're actually trying to interact with the ghost, and then you'd be able to see it. So that's my proposal for how to do this. And you could do the exact same thing. In fact, you could probably do it on these same sensors and have temperature data coming in as well, so you could see if there's a change in temperature as well. So
Yeah.
there you go. I looked this up. This is somebody knocked together a EMF sensor for an Arduino, and this is how you do it. And then you'd be able to slap a temperature sensor on there as well. So that's a schematic. This is my room. That's the end of the presentation. That's how we're gonna find ghosts.
All right. And then you also
So-
set up some of the double barrel cameras.
Yes, double barrel cameras, and yeah, and then we find some ghosts. That's my proposal. And that video is the best thing I found. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think like genuinely, I would like nothing more than like somebody to. I mean, ideally, we could make $1 million off of that idea, but anybody that wants to be a compelling ghost hunter should build something like that. Have like, actual data collection, not just shaky cameras and what was that?
Yeah.
'Cause that's
Yeah.
what most of it is.
All right, Dan, what do you got?
Yeah. Aliens are real.
They're watching right now.
Yeah, well, probably. I don't. You guys did so good. I don't even want to do mine anymore. You already
see
kind of
that.
touched on a lot of the things I was gonna say, actually.
That's probably
Well,
good
it's good because we've been going for like an hour.
Oh,
Yeah, we've been going a long time.
okay. Yeah. So, Travis already talked about it a little bit, and Mike also already talked about it a little bit. But there's some videos, particularly three ones that were taken by American naval pilots. I think they're naval pilots. That have been declassified and released to the public, that have pretty compelling images of flying saucer type things, and nobody really knows what they are. One of them, I think, was the coolest one. It's like it's a kind of a closer view of it, and you can kind of make out the shape of it. The Nismet video. Nimitz, yeah.
That's the name of the boat.
And the guy, I've seen a couple interviews with the pilot himself, and they were saying like it wasn't just the one, there was, like, a lot of them that they were seeing. Anyways, flying saucers are real, and, it's kind of proven. The government released it and says, "Yeah, we don't know what this is." So, um, like, the first thought I had was like, "That's just like a drone or something," but, they're either moving, like, way too fast or flying way too high or do movements and, like, rotate in the sky in ways that you can't that like, it's not a drone. It's not just like a simple drone, at least.
Yeah, so to tack on a little bit, uh, I'm sure we'll link some of the videos here too, but like it's important to note that these are fighter pilots who train professionally all day, every day, have a pretty good idea of what aircraft are capable of. Basically, all pilots do is practice flying,
Yeah,
and they're schooled intensively on like the G's that you can take, how fast you can do these turns, how fast you can climb, and importantly, what other countries that we know of are what they're capable
right.
of. And it's also worth mentioning that the footage recording by some of these pilots, you know, it's fancy cameras basically, infrared, forward looking infrared and stuff like that, but the pilots with their own eyes also saw these aircraft.
Right.
So it's not just like they're captured on system, there's a glitch and whatever. The pilots actually saw the thing too with their face. So they were
Yeah,
close enough to actually see it with their eyes, which is I think pretty compelling.
yeah,
And Mike and I talked a little bit about this. uh some of the I actually, when I deployed in like 2011, one of the pilots that has captured one of these was in one of the squadrons that I deployed with. And the way that these pilots talk about this is like it's very clear that they're just like military
Yeah.
guys, because they talked about, one of them was on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan was like, "Oh, why didn't you make more of a fuss about it?" Or like, why weren't you guys going crazy when you captured this?" He's like, "I don't know. We watched the video, and then our commanding officer told us to get back to work, so we did."
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the same thing I was thinking when I heard it, because like he's talking about it and it's like, if this guy is gonna go off on some huge thing, and be like, oh, there's a big cover up, and like, he's full of it. But yeah, he was just like,
yeah,
yeah, no, we looked at it and then we said, okay, let's go do some more work.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds accurate.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
basically what
well,
I would have
and, like,
done.
to be a pilot, you kinda have to be, like, pretty smart and pretty, like, grounded, you know what I mean? Well, that's kind of an
Well,
ironic thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think we should breeze over the fact, like, Travis worked on these helicopters, these airplanes. I worked on helicopters. Travis worked on airplanes, but like these exact same ones. Do you have any insight on these the like forward lurking infrared pictures or anything like that?
So I mean, I'll say, um, I was not part of the crew that maintained or managed or dealt with the FLIR, which is what I'm going to call it. That was avionics. I was an ordnance guy, so we handled the weapons and stuff like that. And specifically, I was on F-18s in the Marine Corps. The Navy guys were doing F-18 Super Hornets, which are a little bit newer and fancier than the stuff that I was on. But I've seen the FLIR video on the jets themselves. I won't even try to claim that I'm an expert in any way. But I just know that, I don't know. I was in a squadron for a few years, and then like, if you're gonna tell me that the government is doing some conspiracy or whatever, like the military is uh incapable of keeping massive secrets to that degree. Like you've got a bunch of high school students maintaining aircraft. Like
Yeah.
if somebody was like, all right, and this is where the government drone comes in and fabricates this video, like it's not a conspiracy. Uh, it might be any number of things, possibly aliens possibly being one of them. It's possibly other governments aircraft that maybe they have technology that we don't. It could be other things, but one thing it is not is it's not the military fabricating something or whatever.
No,
It's
That's
the
what
military is not that well
That's one of
organized.
my
right.
favorite, arguments against, like, the flat Earth theory, because like, they say, like, the ice wall around the world is guarded
Oh
by
yeah, yeah.
the world's military. I'm like, that would be, like, millions of, like, dudes just outta, like, high school guarding this ice sheet. Like, they're not there's no way that's gonna be kept a secret from, like
Well, it's just
Yeah, the
that's a fact that's lost on a lot of people. It's like the military is mostly 18 and 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like that's
right.
the majority of it.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching this
They all
some
use
TV
they
show
still
and
use TikTok and stuff. Who wouldn't TikTok the ice wall?
yeah. But I mean, I think they were talking about they went to Area 51 or as close as they can get to it, and there was a truck that pulled up there, and they just wait there all day until they leave, and it's like, yeah, that's because that's their job, and they're probably bored out of their minds on their phones, waiting for
Yeah.
you idiots to leave.
What wasn't there I'm pretty sure there was, I think, a secret military base discovered in South Korea or something because the enlisted people there were playing Pokemon Go on their phone. And because of the GPS data on their phone, somehow somebody was able to identify that there's like a military base here.
That's
Like
Fantastic.
pretty amazing, actually.
this
Yeah.
is like you cannot keep conspiracies of the level that would be required for like some of these things to be true. Anyway,
Well,
that's a
I am
tangent.
gonna get into a little bit of conspiracies here.
Lay it on
All right,
me,
let's
Danny.
let's hear it.
Well, all right. Anyways, about these videos. So, um, just if you think about these videos, so these videos were declassified because they were leaked, which suggests that there's probably more videos, probably quite a few more videos. Well, actually, there are. It's been affirmed by they didn't release all of the UFO videos they have, but these ones were leaked, so they're like, yeah, we'll just these are ours, yeah.
Before we get too far into conspiracy territory, sometimes the government holds on to like the specifically the Tic Tac video. Part of it was leaked. It's unclear how it came out, but there are multiple systems on a jet that are monitoring and recording at all times. So one, the FLIR is what is in the Tic Tac video. It's used primarily. There's a couple different ones that they changed through, but there are other systems that are gathering data that have not been released, and those are generally not declassified because they're classified,
Yeah,
and we don't want people to know what our jets are capable
yeah,
of. That's generally why these things don't get released. But rather than because they have proof of aliens or whatever, like
Yeah.
it's largely because we're often at war or
yeah.
whatever.
And I mean, like, yeah, but I mean, that doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of UFO information out there that we don't have access to,
Mhm.
which I think would probably be a lot more convincing. So the Pentagon created an office. I think you already mentioned this. It's sort of a recent thing, just a few years ago, where they're basically going to be investigating these UFOs, um, further solidifying that we don't know what they are. And do you guys know who Bob Lazar is?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Been down that rabbit
Yeah,
hole once or
yeah.
twice.
All right. Well, that was kind of what I was going to talk about. Have you seen this documentary about him?
Oh yeah. Yep. I
Yeah.
think I've watched it twice actually.
Yeah, so Bob Lazar, well, I guess you should say he claims to have worked. It wasn't Area 51, was it S4, I think?
It's part of Area
Yeah,
51.
but it
Yeah.
like in a different location.
Yep.
And that's where they keep the alien spacecraft that they're researching, and he was one of the researchers.
Can I
Um,
just say something about this? And I just want to put it out in the world. So S4, I mean, Travis, you know what S4 is, right? In the Marines, it's security. It's a intelligence office. Like
Yeah.
every squadron, every unit has an S4 shop, and that's where the intelligence. That yeah.
You
Anyway,
you can't bring your cell phones in there. It's like usually locked
okay,
behind like a basically a safe door,
yeah.
and you always have to leave your cell phones outside. It's I don't know. I've never really talked to people in S4 that much. They're, I mean, by nature very secretive, I guess. But I've never I've been in there before when we had to do like security clearance stuff. Um, they didn't have pictures of aliens on the wall, I guess.
What I remember, because I used to do secret briefings for combat missions because we'd be going to fly in Afghanistan and Iraq. So the only cool stuff that I got to see in there was like the most recent incidences of uh combat going on. So that's all I
Sure.
really remember about it.
Can I say, I to do my job, I had to have like a secret clearance, and there's like five levels above that. But they say like you have to have this clearance. So you go through all this thing and they interview your friends and family or whatever. And then at one point, I got to go to a briefing for them to explain what about my job was secret and like what things basically don't go telling people about this functionality. So I did that and it was like a 5 hour thing and they gave us every little detail. And then like the functionality that they're talking about is like in the movie Top Gun, the one from like the 80s.
It's
It's
true.
like, sure, I'll keep my mouth shut, but like you guys are doing a real bad job.
It's funny because it's true.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway,
as far as I can tell, I feel like I can read people pretty well. He seems like a pretty um, sane, normal type of person who's just like really smart. Um, and he since he's kind of gone public with it, like he talks about like working, like having like a, what is it, like a engine type thing, or a sphere that has like a reverse gravity effect on it.
Yeah,
yeah.
gravitational engine.
Yeah, and he kind of describes him kind of basically trying to figure it out. It's the way he explains it. You know, he's a proven, very intelligent man who knows a lot. Like he created like some sort of rocket uh, car, I think it was. I should have rewatched that documentary. But
Yeah, that's how he got discovered. He was making like he was strapping rocket engines to a vehicle
yeah,
and like in his spare time. And NASA's like, or not NASA, but like whoever it is that does the hiring was like, hey,
The
come
aliens.
work with us. Yeah.
yeah. So like they kept him in, and like they only let him know the thing that he was working on. And he never really, I think he said one time he got to see some of the other spacecraft that were there, but he was working on his, and then they would do test flights and stuff like that. And he's never changed his story since I think it was the 70s.
'80s.
Was it the 80s? Since the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's never changed his story, and he kind of doesn't like talking about it because he gets so much attention about it. He's just like, this is what happened to me. And there during that documentary, he kind of talks about he might have some of a physical piece, or like the fuel or something,
Yeah.
some radioactive material. And like immediately after him mentioning that, like his business gets raided by the FBI. I looked into that. It sounded like they were looking. It was related to a murder case, but that's not true.
Sure.
Um,
You know.
I don't know. Uh, it just seems very plausible to me. You guys apparently know everything that I had to say already.
I went deep down this. I went way deep down this rabbit hole. Like I watched, like I said, I watched some stuff about ghosts and just got fed up with it. And then I went hard aliens for a while.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
I did, like, I'd say the first week, I was trying to listen to podcasts, I was watching
me,
videos, reading articles. I just nothing was from a skeptic's perspective that kinda tried to help
well,
explain, ghosts, and that was what I was
I li-
looking for, and I could not find it.
I listened to this podcast. It's actually on Travis's recommendation called Skeptoid. Uh, and it's it's kind of the skeptic guy. I think he has a skeptic website or something like that, and it was not helping the ghost situation. I was like, I'm going too far in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
But anyway, I wanted to say, talking about Bob Lazar, like I would love to have like 3 hours to pick his brain
yeah.
about the experiments that he was running on them, like how they were actually doing it. And that's, I think for me, that would satisfy me. Like, if because he talks about the technology and stuff that's related to it, but it would be fascinating to, like, all right, so what did you actually do? So were you just, poking it with
So
sticks,
he
or were you
he
like,
was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
yeah, I listened to that.
Okay, I think they talked a little bit about it when he was on there.
He kind of did. He just more breezed over it. There's a lot of like hand wavy stuff, which I mean, I think when you're talking to Joe Rogan, you don't want to get too complicated.
Yeah.
But like, but at the same time, like just as an engineer, I would like to see what kind of experiments he was running on it and be like, okay, so he had mentioned, yeah. Anyway, I would just
I will say, for people that are unfamiliar or this is all new information to, Balbazar, if you believe him to be credible, he in like the original interview that he gave in like 1980 something, he mentioned the existence of like the stable existence of an element that had been discovered before, but it was never stabilized. And he mentioned that that was part of what they suspected the craft to like utilized. And in the ensuing years, scientists have found a way to stabilize it. That's often used as a way of like lending credence to his ideas. And then the idea of a gravitational engine being used to propel aircraft. The reason that that's come up a lot is because that's one of the theories for the propulsion for the craft in the Tic Tac video and other
Right.
ones, meaning that like aircraft could only move the way that they do. They're not using propulsion. There's no heat signatures coming off these things. So the theory is that they're doing some form of gravity manipulation to propel their aircraft, including like going into like the water and stuff like that, like transmedium
Yeah.
aircraft.
Yeah, like one of them, the it was going like really high, then it went really far down, and then it went into the ocean and came back out. Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. If people really want it, you like Mike said, you can really go down a rabbit hole. There's a lot to see.
Yeah. And it seems like it's like sightings, like kind of credible sightings are becoming more frequent in recent years. Um,
Yeah.
that's probably, I don't know if that's because the aliens are visiting us more or or if maybe we just are
that's definitely what it
or
is.
if we're just like able to see it. And I was thinking maybe also because it's kind of coming into the public again, like maybe people are just a little more comfortable saying like, "Hey, I saw this crazy thing. Here's a video of it."
I think it's I forget. I think it's Ryan Graves is one of the pilots. He was most recently on Joe Rogan. He talked about how I think it was in 2012 maybe when they started seeing him, but he mentioned that their squadron got an updated version of like the FLIR software, like an updated FLIR tool or whatever, and that's when they started being able to detect these things. So I wonder if it's the increase in sightings and the increase in the reliability of them is more. I mean, everybody has a camera with like crystal clear video in their
Yeah.
pocket, and maybe the technology is advanced so that we're like I don't know a little bit better able to pick up these things. I don't know.
But yeah, so I guess that's all I had to say about all that.
So now I think we finally, after almost 2 hours, we can decide who who
That's
wins, right?
seriously, oh my god.
God. All right. Yeah, we need to put a bow on this. So who do you think won?
You guys had kind of a similar thing.
I
But
I kind of I don't know. I kind of don't want to vote for you, Dan, just because
You
I
cheated.
feel and we all kind of brought the same information
yeah,
about
you guys literally kind of already knew everything that I
it.
was gonna say. So I think we all kind of did the exact same thing. I
Yeah.
don't, Travis, did you look up aliens for this?
I already knew everything about him.
Okay.
Uh,
I
all
thought
right.
I thought I was gonna blow your minds, but all right. This is
So
yesterday's news.
so I think this is gonna come down to you, Dan. Which one of us brought better ghost evidence?
Well, I think the way I'm gonna lean on this one is I'm gonna lean towards Mike because Mike has a
Yeah.
solution, kind of a concrete solution on how to solve some of these issues
Yeah,
that both of
baby.
you brought up.
Yeah, I could accept that. Mine was just airing grievances. Mike is actually trying to solve the problem.
So I would pick Mike, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my word is law. So
Yes. I think we're all winners and we have obviously stumbled onto something that we have a lot of thoughts on.
I didn't realize we've been talking for so long.
Yeah, and you gotta edit this.
Yeah. Well, this is something though, like I really enjoy talking about because I like talking about how stupid ghosts are
I
and
mean, like I said,
also how interesting the fact that aliens are probably real and on Earth is really. I'm pretty honestly fairly convinced that they're extraterrestrial, and I'm not afraid to say that on
what
the
about
millions of listeners.
What about super terrestrial?
A million.
What
Meaning
does
that
that mean?
they come from this Earth. There's another race of creatures that originated on Earth but have been hiding in plain sight the whole time. I don't really believe that.
That's just War
Um,
of the Worlds.
well, no,
Um,
it's like the lizard people, or if they
Oh.
can, Atlantis, or you know, the thing with like these conversations can go so far in any
Well, I
direction.
think
Because
that's just the problem with it, man. Because like, yeah, you start on one thing that like, all right, we can test this, we can look at it, and then people are like, but hey, also I speak to aliens with the
But
mind,
what
and they're
about,
all
like
from Atlantis, and they're telling us that we need to stop abusing the Earth.
what kills me is like, hey, that's a pretty compelling video of a UFO. That makes me question some things. Like, and then some people are like, yeah, and did you know that there's 7 types of aliens, and one of them is a slave race to the other ones, and there's intergalactic wars, and they're trying to contact human beings. It's like, again, like you take like one sort of interesting thing and you extrapolate into infinity.
That's the problem, and I think that's also part of the problem with any lending any credence to any of their claims. Like people got to rein it in a little bit. All right.
One step at a time. Now presenting Scooby Don't, Mike Collins.
Hey guys, thanks Dan, thanks Travis, thanks everybody for listening. Look, I mean, if you believe in ghosts, or if you've had a personal experience that was uncanny and you were convinced, I'm not gonna poo-poo on what what you believe, and I don't think that's a fair way to look at it. So what I would say is, let's amp up the way that we look into this. Let's, work together as a team, the scientific community and, the believers. And I think maybe we'll find something interesting.
you did great.